Welcome to Recovery Rockstar. My name is Melinda White, and I am a person in long-term recovery. What that means to me is that I haven't had to use drugs or alcohol since December 28, 2011. I'm grateful that I have the opportunity to continue doing the things that I have done right from the beginning that keep me in healthy, successful recovery, as well as give me opportunities to work with other people who are struggling with addiction. I want to put in a plug, as I often do, for Narcan, which is the overdose reversal kit. Narcan is available at any of the pilot sites in the state of Vermont. If you look up the Vermont Department of Health's website, you can find a pilot site close to you. Here in Franklin County, we have multiple pilot sites. So I encourage anybody who doesn't already have a kit, or if you have an expired kit, you can go and exchange that for an up-to-date kit. Do not throw out the expired ones, because expired kits are better than no kits at all. Make sure you replace that kit before you throw it out. But just super grateful that we have such access to those overdose kits. And that wasn't the case years ago. So I remain grateful to be able to connect with people in recovery, to be able to promote things that are life-saving, and more than anything, to interview some amazing rock stars. Today, I'm super excited because the person that I'm going to be interviewing is somebody that I knew in my heart a little over a year ago would eventually come on this show and has been like a huge blessing to my life. So first, let me just say, Ethan, you're here.
Yeah.
Welcome. I know, finally.
We got on here.
It's amazing. I remember when we first met and we would talk, and I was like,
yeah,
you're going to be on my show someday. You're going to be on my show someday. And here it is. So
yeah, I'm so happy to be here.
I appreciate you for coming. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And especially for being willing to share a little bit about your journey to people who might be struggling. So
Right, yeah.
Let's kind of start at the beginning.
All right.
Tell us a little bit about what was your life like growing up? Where did you grow up? What did it look like?
Well, I grew up in the Northeast Kingdom, lived in Danville, Vermont, till I was about like 12 years old. And that was right around the time my parents divorced. Around that time, I lived with my dad, and things were kind of on the dark side. He was really struggling with the whole divorce thing. Mm-hmm. He relied on alcohol a little bit. He wasn't like a full alcoholic at all, but he would drink heavier than usual because of that. When I was 14 years old, that's when I first started smoking weed, and really liked that a lot.
How'd you get introduced to, like, was it through school friends, or how did you first get introduced to?
It was through, I guess it was through school friends.
Yeah, common.
Yeah, at the time I was like really into music, and I had already made up my mind like I was gonna try it as soon as I got the opportunity, because I was just like, I wanted to do it. But it became a really bad habit. I was just doing it all the time as much as I could, and shortly thereafter I started drinking too.
Okay. So, and it's interesting because oftentimes people will ask me, is marijuana a gateway drug? And there's a lot of there's a lot of controversy out there about, yes, it is, no, it's not. But one thing that I've noticed is from my own experience and other people I talk to is that marijuana is often one of those first things that they use.
Yeah.
So what did it look like once you like you said, you started smoking a little bit more often, and then you started drinking? What did it look like through the rest of your high school years? Did you find that your using increased?
Definitely increased. Yeah, I was at a point, like in high school, I was smoking before school, and then it was like towards the end of the day, all I could wait for was to smoke another bowl. And
so it was already compulsion. Okay.
Yeah.
So and that's the interesting thing is that, as you know, once we start developing addiction to anything, one of the key signs is how much is it consuming our mind, even if we're not doing it through all those hours, when we're fixated and thinking, and
the obsession is there.
Yes. So that got you at a young age. Now tell me a little bit about the music though. So that's a highlight. You're into music.
So right before my parents divorced, my sister happened to play guitar, and one day I just like saw her playing, and I was like, can you teach me some chords? And so I started, like, she taught me like G, D, C, and I literally just spent like 12 hours playing those 3 chords.
Wow.
So I was just like, that was honestly another obsession almost. It was another escape for me. And shortly thereafter, I formed like little bands in like elementary school, and just fell in love with music in a big way.
I love that. And of course I can relate to that because we're both musicians. And it's interesting the way that you describe your interest in music too, because it is almost an excess, right?
Definitely.
We're kind of those kind of people that are like, when we're in, we're all in. And if playing for 3 hours is good, then playing for 6 hours is better.
Yeah.
So it sounds like, I mean, you started mixing between music and use. Did you do a lot of gigging out and find that it was hard to not use or drink when you were out gigging?
Yeah, I mean, I had a band in high school, and that's where we first started like gigging out in bars and everything. And me and the lead singer were both like big potheads.
Yeah.
I mean, we were smoking weed a lot, drinking too, and that whole scene was definitely like a big part of it was partying.
Right.
So it was hard to avoid that. And as I got into college and I continued playing in bands, the partying only got harder.
Yeah.
So
Did you find that, it kind of became the norm in a sense? Yeah.
yeah.
So it sounds like, you'd gone through school and then also in college, and your use was increasing over time.
Yeah.
What did it look like when you first realized that what used to be super fun could potentially have some kind of a problem?
Well, I mean, I knew what I was doing was risky. Like in high school, it was mainly just weed and drinking. But when I went to college, that's where I first tried cocaine. And that was another thing that I just like fell in love with and was sort of obsessive over. And I knew, like, everyone had told me, don't do cocaine, it'll make your heart explode. It's dangerous. But there was kind of a thrill about that too.
Yep.
So I continued to do that, even knowing like how dangerous it was. But when I got into the opiates, that's when things got darker and darker and darker.
Yeah.
And there was definitely like, when I was doing drugs, there was always a line where, no, I won't try that. I won't do that. But as I tried harder drugs, that line kept getting pushed further and further.
Right.
And eventually all you care about is getting your next fix. You're not doing it to have fun anymore. You're doing it to feel normal.
Yeah.
And
so you were dependent on it.
And eventually, like, when I started considering like stealing to maintain my habit, it was just like, you feel horrible and you do it anyways. And I kept doing it despite knowing how wrong it was. So it took a while. It took a long time for me to finally hit like an actual rock bottom.
Yeah.
Somewhere along that way, I accidentally overdosed in 2018. I was just partying really hard. I wasn't trying to like overdose, but I was drinking. I was doing opiates and cocaine, and I woke up in an ambulance, and that wasn't enough for me to like hang it up. So
And that's a sad thing, is that oftentimes, in the past, scare tactics were used to try to get people to want to be in recovery. And, I mean, I know for me, I could see people dying around me.
yeah.
And it still didn't, because I numbed that feeling, right? So it still didn't affect me. It's like, well, that's normal. It comes with being a drug user. And yet,
Right.
even seeing myself dying wasn't enough until it wasn't seeing it, but it was feeling it. So for you, what did it look like when you got to a place that you realized that you don't want to do this anymore? Was it that overdose that made you want to change, or did it?
Yeah. So that was my first time, like, after the overdose, like my family found out that I was using and I was an addict. And that was definitely the first wake up call. Right after that, I got into an MAT program, and I was trying to stick to it. But I didn't try any 12-step programs. I didn't really want to admit my powerlessness over it either. But that was my first time. So it took a few relapses after that overdose before I finally just said, all right, I'm not going to listen to the rebellious drug addict inside. I'm just going to take the suggestions from the people that want me to go to rehab, etc. So
Right. Well, and it's hard, right? Nobody likes to admit complete defeat. And there's something about, we hear this often in the recovery world that we live in and work in and whatnot, that, we need to surrender. And there's something about hearing, well, if I surrender, that means I'm giving up. And it's like, no, that's a sign of strength. Exactly. Yeah. So What did it look like when you made that decision to surrender? What did your life look like? Like, whereabouts were you? Were you still in Vermont?
Yeah, so I was in Vermont. I was in my band. We were called Third Shift, and all the other two members in the band were also using. I had tried to get sober the year before and eventually just relapsed. I ended up leaving where I was staying. I was living with my mom that I left, and I was living on my bandmate's couch. And we were all just using, playing music. We were also getting a bunch of gigs at the same time, so it was really exciting to play music, but I couldn't even enjoy it because all I was thinking about was I need to get my fix after this. But one night me and the lead singer just got really intoxicated. I ended up punching a window out. I blacked out. I was on like opiates and alcohol. And that night, for some reason, I walked to my dad's house and I was just done. And the next day I woke up like dope sick, and for some reason I didn't try to scam anyone or get away to, pick up. I just decided to ask for help. My sister ended up showing up to my dad's house the next day, and she was like, dude, I can take you in. I can help you out. And I told her I needed the help, and I was ready to do whatever. And shortly after that, I went to the first 12-step meeting, and you happened to be there. And I remember you talked to me and my sister for like 2 hours.
Yeah.
And you like helped us figure out a plan, and encouraged me to like call the rehab facility. And I was so like reluctant to go to rehab. I was like, I didn't want to do that, but it changed my life. And I had a really good experience in rehab.
Tell me about that. What was the best part of it?
I think just like the camaraderie, meeting other people, going along the journey, sort of like seeing where people are at. Some people were there like almost against their will. Some people were there like taking it seriously, but there was sort of like a brotherhood between people, and just the support among pretty much complete strangers. It was really nice. And the counselors were really nice too.
Yeah.
So I just learned a lot about what addiction actually is, what it does to your brain and your thinking, and just like tools to manage that. But the real recovery started after getting out of rehab and maintaining that recovery lifestyle.
Right,
So,
like getting out of that kind of safe setting and that structured setting and bringing everything you learned back.
Yeah.
And it's interesting too, because I often say, even if we go to, say, a recovery meeting of some sort, I'll speak for myself, I already have like this bond with the people in that room just because we have a very intimate similarity, which is that we don't want to die of this disease, right? So that's it. Like when you share a common thing, if you're going to a knitting class, everybody knits, and yet that doesn't mean, it may not be like tapping into the emotional, physical, spiritual, the way that, recovery rooms do. So that peer support is huge. And just like you said, you meet people from all different backgrounds or walks of life when you go into treatment. And I remember being told, sometimes I would see people that it's like what they were doing, what they had, I really didn't want. So that I would almost want to use that as an excuse to not go to these places. And I was always told that's you being given the example of what you don't want to do. So it's like, there's always something to learn. There's always something to learn. Always. Yeah. So when you got back, what did you end up doing what changes did you institute in your life that have helped you stay on the path?
One big thing I did was I maintained going to 12-step recovery meetings pretty much every day. I tried to do the 90 meetings in 90 days. I also, right after I got out of rehab, I had this spiritual experience, which was really lucky. I mean, a lot of people, it takes a long time for that spiritual experience to happen, but I ended up going to Church of the Rock here in St. Albans, and was just welcomed in so quickly and gracefully. I was welcomed onto the worship team there, it's just been a huge part of my spiritual program and keeping a happy, peaceful mindset through it all. So between like recovery meetings and my church and my prayer time in the morning, that's really what helps me.
I love it. So, and
stay
it sounds
true.
like, so you start your day off with something to kind of get you balanced before you begin your day on the outside.
Yeah, I usually read like a couple recovery books, try to do some prayer and meditation, just get my mind right
Right.
for the whole day.
And that's it. I love that because that's such a big piece of anybody I talk to, where it's like some of the changes they institute, many people will institute at least something in the morning. So it helps set the tone for the day, right? So we can be about, like, how can I be the best for the world? Not the best in the world, but the best for the world. And how do I help others and love others and all that? And
selfless, not self-centered.
Exactly. Like, what a miracle to be in that headspace, right? After we're, prior to getting in recovery. And then, so tell me a little bit now, music you've touched on, that's a huge passion of yours and kind of your language, right? Part of your heart. What are you doing with your music these days? Are you playing? I mean, I know the answers, but I've got to ask you so others can learn. What are you doing with your music these days?
So I have a duo with Pastor Marty from Church of the Rock. We've been playing together for a little over a year now. We play around in St. Albans and Burlington, playing at bars and stuff. I'm also working on some solo music. I put out a solo album a couple months ago.
So what's the name of the duo that you play out with Marty? What's the name of that?
So we're called Blue Heron.
Blue Heron. So if anybody wants to look you up and go listen to you guys, then they can look at a Blue Heron Facebook page. And then what's the name of your album?
My album is Ethan Sawyer, and it's called Views from the Rooftop. And it's all about my recovery journey. It's all about like where I was. It's sort of like my testimony, and it explains the darkness of addiction, but also the sunshine on the other side of that.
Wow. So that album is based off your experience through your addiction and your recovery?
Yeah.
Wow. And that's available. How do people get that if they want it?
So that album is actually available on all streaming platforms. So you can get it on Spotify, you can see it on YouTube, Amazon Music,
Love it.
Anywhere. So.
And then also you mentioned being on the worship team at the Church of the Rock. So you're doing that. You've led. And then do you do anything with youngsters?
I do. So I help out at the youth group there. That's been a big part of my sort of service aspect of my recovery. And that's been a learning process, definitely. Like when I first started doing the youth group, it was like very foreign to me. But it's fun. It's really rewarding.
No, the beauty of it too is the kids absolutely love you. Like I see that, and what a miracle when you think about where were you, a year and a half ago versus the way that you're spending your time now. So
that just to think about where I was and where I am now, it still blows my mind just thinking about it. It's crazy.
What would you say if there's people watching right now that are struggling because, whether it's their own use or their loved ones, what would you want them to know?
Recovery is possible. It's hard. It feels like it's never going to end. It's really painful. And you feel ashamed of what you've done and what you're willing to do. But forgiveness is possible. And redemption is possible. Just reach out for help. I mean, it's put the pride aside and surrender.
I love that. So it's hard to look at you and listen to you and not bawl my face off because, I've been so fortunate to share a lot of your journey with you.
Such a part of my recovery. Like, I'm really thankful.
Well, it's amazing because I'm crazy grateful about it. And I just love you dearly. Like you're my own brother. And also just seeing you shift from that place of like, you're helping so many people. And that just continues to happen just by being you and doing what you're doing. Yeah. And with your album too, I knew the album had come out and I knew that it was slightly inspired by your recovery, but I didn't fully grasp like really that's what got it done. So I love it. I'm so excited for you. I am so grateful that you were willing to come on this show. Yeah. I feel like I've put you to work. I know Marty's put you to work. I know a lot of people that love you dearly and just want you involved in everything because you're so talented and you're such a shining light. But thank you for doing all of that stuff. Yeah. And how exciting that because you're a musician, we're going to have you do a song so the listeners can hear. Can you tell me why you chose the song that you chose?
So the song I'm going to be playing is Gratitude by Brandon Lake. And actually, you introduced this song to me, and I haven't been able to stop listening to it. It's really just the whole vibe of the song is I'm grateful for how God has transformed my life. And all I can do is say thank you and say hallelujah. And that's my journey. I mean, my church and my spiritual program is such a big part of my recovery. So I thought this song just really spoke to that.
I love it. Well, thank you for choosing such a beautiful song, and thank you for letting me share in it with you.
Yeah.
We're going to let the listeners hear you, and otherwise,
right.
Ethan, thank you so much for doing what you do. This is definitely not the last time you're going to be on this show, that's for sure. So
thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, and thank you, everybody who's watched. We'll see you next time on Recovery Rockstar.
All my words fall short. I've got nothing new. How could I express all my gratitude? I could sing these songs as I often do, but these songs must end, and you never do. So I'll throw up my hands and praise you again and again. So that I have is a hallelujah, hallelujah. And I know it's not much, I've nothing else fit for a king, except for a heart singing hallelujah, hallelujah. I've got one response, I've got just one move, with my arms stretched wide, I will worship you. So I throw up my hands, praise you again and again, so that I have is a hallelujah, hallelujah. And I know it's not much, I've nothing else fit for my king, except for a heart singing hallelujah, hallelujah. Ooh. Come on, my soul, oh, don't you get shiny, lift up your song, 'cause you got a lion inside of those lungs. Get up and praise the Lord. Oh, come on, my soul, oh, don't you get shiny, lift up your song. You got a lion inside of those lungs. Get up and praise the Lord. Oh, come on, my come on, my soul. Oh, don't you get shy on me. Lift up your song. You got a light inside of those lungs. Get up and praise the Lord. Oh, come on, my soul. Oh, don't you get shy on me. Lift up your soul. 'Cause you got a light inside of those lungs. Get up and praise the Lord. So I throw up my hands and praise you again and again. So that I have is a hallelujah, hallelujah. And I know it's not much, I've nothing else fit for a king, except for a heart singing hallelujah, Thank you.
Nice job.